Yeah, well, they all have this psychosis too, and always the ending up question is who's more nutty, the ones that have the key or the ones behind the key, and sometimes your compassion must go towards the staff as much as to the people that are, because everybody's in trouble. Everybody's suffering. And a staff that says there's nothing else than physical reality and come down to reality, they're suffering a lot too, because they've got a lot of fear. And very often, sometimes your work of love for the staff can quiet them down enough so that they can be more spacious with the patients. And you'll see that as you work on yourself, that everybody you meet is your business at hand. Everybody you meet. And I mean, when I meet the policeman that pinches me, that gives me a ticket, or when I go to the bank teller, or in the grocery store, everybody I meet is another contact of soul with soul. And another person that is in some way caught in some suffering, some entrapment of mind, of models of what they think reality is. And me too. And I just keep reaching to meet soul with soul, God with God. Just keep working on oneself to offer that. And then you finish with these models of who's the doctor and who's the patient and who, you don't get lost in the categories. You just meeting fellow. I've got this wonderful story I've told before about, I went to a Vipassana meditation course, and the upper bunk in the cabin I was in the dormitory, we were going to be on silence for 10 days, completely. What had happened was that I had gone to a meditation course previously, and I'm sure you all know what this is like, that I had arrived a few minutes late, and I was on silence, and I was rooming with a guy who I didn't get a chance to talk to. And so the result was that I spent most of the 10 days thinking about him and how much he didn't like me. And I decided I must snore, and I probably smell, and I wasn't, he made hospital corners on the beds, and I just assumed that he wasn't approving of me somehow. And I spent a lot of time during those, because you grasp at things to think about in meditation courses. And the first thing is we met after the meditation course. He said, I just want to know how really wonderful it was to share a room with Ram Dass and to be with you, and your meditations helped me so much. And I saw how my mind had done it the whole trip. I had created that. So I decided this time I wasn't going to have that happen. So I said to this guy, we had about 5 minutes, I said, hello, what's your name? What do you do? And so on. And he said, I'm a vice president for industrial loans in a bank. And I said, that's interesting. What are you doing here? That seemed like an unlikely person to be in the upper bunk. And he said, in the 60s, I was a vice president for industrial loans at this bank. And then he said, I saw that everybody else was having more fun than me in life. They were all taking drugs and all. And so I dropped out. And I left my job, and I left my family, and I went to the mountains, and I took dope, and I grew my hair long, and I threw pots, and I wrote poetry, and I thumbed around the country, and I had a lot of love affairs, and I took hot tubs. And he said, I did this for about 8 years. And he said, then I found myself in the same city again, and on the street I met the president of the bank. And he said, it's amazing that I should meet you today because your desk at the bank just became available again, and you were the best vice president of industrial loans we ever had. Would you consider coming back to work? And I thought, why not? So I went out and bought a necktie, and I went back to work. And I said to him, was it any different? He said, oh, it was entirely different. He said, before, I used to be a vice president of industrial loans. Now I go to this place and I hang out with these people all day long. The vehicle for us hanging out happens to be industrial loans. Can you hear that? Just see? And that's really, it's a very profound story from my understanding of what life is about. What difference does it make? What's your vehicle for coming into interaction with people? People say it's so nice you can talk about the spirit, but the spirit can be sold like hamburger too. And sometimes you can go, I used to, I was speaking in New York, and I was doing, way back in '68, my first, was doing 2 weeks at a place called the Sculptor Studio uptown in New York. And I was living downtown, and I took a bus every day on the 3rd Avenue bus line. And I happened to get the same bus driver a few days in a row. And here it was rush hour on 3rd Avenue in New York City, and enough of you know what that's like. And here was this being, you got on the bus, and he was right there. He was warm, he was present, just in the way you put the money in the meter and the way he dealt with you and dealt with the traffic. There was a quality of healing in his being. And I began to think, if I were the Buddha, would I be a 3rd Avenue bus driver, or why not? I mean, what form would you expect that light to take? And I could see the way in which he was healing just that planet through his role on the 3rd Avenue bus every day. So I think that you can stop getting so caught in whether you're in a holy form or not, and take whatever form is given to you and use that as your vehicle.